Hi, everyone. Welcome. You know what I'm going to ask you to do if you've attended these before. Please use the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. Let's see where you are. Massachusetts, hello. Oh, that's Carrie. Hi, Carrie. And also, if you have chickens, let us know if you have chickens. Cindy from Virginia, hello. Ohio, hi. All right. I'm in Seattle. Linda's in Maine. Los Altos, California. Chicago, hello. Welcome. New York, hi. We'll let a few more people get tuned in and then we'll get started. And I'm sorry my camera's kind of doing the zoomy thing. I'll try to hold still so it doesn't do that much. Florida, hello. Oh, you have 6. Wow. Wilson Flock of Cluckers, hello from California. John from Brooklyn. All right. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Hamilton. I have a cookbook shop here in Seattle, Washington. It's called Book Larder. We have started to do a little bit of in-person author talk happenings and cooking classes again here in the waning days of February and as we head into March. But for the foreseeable future, we are also going to offer these talks on Zoom because they present us a lot of great opportunities. We get to do a talk like the one today where our author is in one state, our interviewer is on completely the other side of the country in another state, and all of you get to join us from all over the place. So thank you so much for being here today. I am delighted to welcome Lisa Steele, author of this fantastic new book, Fresh Eggs Daily Cookbook. She is, of course, the creator of fresheggsdaily.com. And this book is just full of incredible ideas, all kinds of things to do with eggs. She is going to be in conversation today with Linda Miller Nicholson, who is the author of the incredible book Pasta Pretty Please, and makes some of the most creative pasta you will ever see anywhere. They are going to, of course, talk about the book. They are going to leave time for questions. So please use that little Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask questions if you have them. You can use the chat to talk to each other, but just use that Q&A button for any questions that you have. You can support the author talk today by purchasing Fresh Eggs Daily from Book Larder. I will drop a little link in the chat to make that easy. And thank you to everyone who's done that so far. The book just came out today, and Lisa sent us book plates. And so all of the copies that we're sending out will have her signature included in them as well. The talk today is being recorded and it will be on our YouTube channel in the next 2 days. And so if you have to drop off early or you want to watch it later or share it with friends, you will have the opportunity to do that. All right, so let's go ahead and get the discussion started. Please welcome Linda Miller Nicholson and Lisa Steele.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hello.
Wow, Lisa, you look so beautiful. You're glowing. I think giving birth to this new book of yours must have just put the roses in your cheeks and given you a renewed vigor for all things egg. I'm so excited to get to interview you today.
Thank you. It's actually the ring light that I have shining on me, but I really appreciate your comments.
Yes, the glory of technology. Well, we met briefly for our quick tech check a few minutes ago, everyone. And I have to tell you, Lisa was basically trying to tactfully tell me that I needed to change the angle of my camera because she couldn't see my dress. And so in so asking that, she said, "Are you wearing clothes or not?" So
I actually asked if you were topless. So don't be putting words in my mouth.
If I was topless, yes. Yeah.
And this
Oh,
conversation has
no, but
gone straight into the gutter.
oh, it has not. The eggs are rolling right down the gutter now. Have you ever bowled with eggs? No, now you're introducing us through the Fresh Eggs Daily Cookbook to some of your sort of beloved recipes. And I would imagine that you have gleaned quite a collection of recipes over the years just because you have such a glut of eggs at your disposal. And so this has got to have been sort of a long time in the making.
Yeah, I mean, you used to have chickens, and when they're laying, you have so many eggs, you don't know what to do with them. So, I've had people ask me where the idea for the book came from, and it didn't really come from anywhere. Like it just sort of burst out of me because I've been cooking eggs for so many years, so many ways, and I just felt like it was something I needed to share.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I noticed through the book and the way it's organized is actually very interesting in terms of the categories, which we can go into, but you really do cover such a breadth of recipes. And I think that a lot of times when people think about egg recipes, they may think of breakfast, more often than anything else. And you do such a great job in the book of kind of taking us almost, I mean, I would say, to me, it feels like it's almost like you organize it throughout the day. And while you start with breakfast, you then move through to brunch and snacks and cocktails, et cetera. And so in terms of thinking about that flow, did you just sort of amass recipes and then the structure found you? Or did you know that you wanted to make sure to hit upon things that would work for evening or things that would be sort of evergreen?
I actually wanted 2 chapters, savory and sweet, because I mean, come on, eggs are. And my editor said you can't write a cookbook and only have 2 chapters. Like you have to break them into meals, and I didn't like that because, like, what's to say you can't have an omelet for dinner or a pizza for breakfast, or like I don't like putting eggs into when during the day you should eat them, but they obviously won, and we have, I don't know, 6 or 7 chapters. But if I had my way, it would have just been savory or sweet. Like, what are you in the mood for? Something savory? Great. Here are your recipes. You want dessert? Here you go. So I don't like to, box it. It was really hard to say,
necessarily
well,
box
this
it
is
in, yeah.
breakfast or this is brunch. I mean, dinner was a little easier because they're like a little more
Right.
hearty and whatever. But yeah, the rest of it, and cocktails, you probably wouldn't have with breakfast, but then again, you might. So, it's arbitrary. The
Yeah, I
chapters,
mean,
really.
certainly with brunch. I mean, I guess I like the categorization because I know I can flip through to a particular chapter and kind of get, okay, this is where near and dear to my heart, you put the pasta. This is where the gnocchi is. This is where the ravioli is. And it's lined up there where I know I can get. And then also sauces. You have kind of a almost like a special bonus chapter at the end that has kind of a conglomerate of all of those things that that you can do with eggs that are so sort of magical. I mean, eggs are really a magical ingredient, and I think the fact that you have chosen to completely showcase them. Do you want to take a step back? And I know that probably a lot of people who are joining us today have been with you for a long time, maybe on social media or in sort of their own chicken journeys, coming to the end of their rope and thinking, who do I turn to for help on this? And you are and have been our beacon of hope for a long time in terms of giving us all advice in that realm, teaching us all about chicken rearing from a variety of different levels, small or big, and what to feed and how to light and all of those crazy questions. But how did you kind of decide that you wanted to take that journey over into the culinary realm?
It's kind of funny because it was sort of like just before COVID when a book was just coming out, and I was, actually on a book tour when COVID hit and everything got canceled. But my last book had come out, and I was sort of, getting antsy, like, what am I going to do next? And COVID hit, and everybody who didn't already have chickens all of a sudden wanted chickens. So my editor wanted me to write another chicken book, like fast, just get one out because everyone's looking for chicken content. And I said, it would be easy for me. I mean, I could just do it in my sleep, put it out, I know it would sell, but I really wanted to do this cookbook. And I thought, if I'm not going to do it now, when am I going to do it? So I hired an agent, ended up going with a completely new publisher. And
Oh,
I'm so
wow.
glad I did because, yeah, my chicken publisher, we'll call them, they finally did offer me a cookbook deal. I had been begging, like, let me write a cookbook, let me write a cookbook. Like, it's ready to just like explode out of me. And he just didn't see it. He didn't see an egg cookbook, like my vision. And I found a wonderful agent, John Moss from Park and Fine, who got it. Like, as soon as I explained it to him, he didn't try to turn it into a farm and to table. He didn't try to turn it into something that I didn't want it to be. He got the idea of an egg cookbook. And for me, it was just the next natural step. Like, the world does not need another book on how to get started raising chickens. I mean, especially not from me. I just didn't have anything more to say about chickens. So it was time
Well, to be
to
fair,
move over
you
to
are
the
kind
eggs.
of the authority in that realm, and I think that already yes, right, that already exists within your canon. So people who are looking for answers there, luckily the chicken world doesn't change quite as fast as the human world. They're well, I mean, a lot of them are on TikTok, but but yeah, look to your previously written book. So this is kind of a awesome and really exciting divergence. And you actually said something in your answer there that made me want to focus on one of the things that I really liked about the book, and how you said, it's not farm to table, it's not this, it's an egg cookbook. One of the things that I really liked is that you, I think probably somewhat deliberately, or maybe just out of accessibility, used ingredients that are, I would say, by and large, very accessible to virtually anyone, at least across this country, whether they're urban or rural. But then there's always kind of a little twist with everything. So you'll throw in surprising and delightful ingredients like cardamom, I noticed that you love, or tarragon, or something that just has like that little, brings it to kind of a new level. And I'm wondering, was that informed by hoping that this would be accessible to everyone, or how did you fall into that style?
Not at all. That's just how I cook. I mean, we have fresh eggs and we have a garden in the summer. So we have fresh vegetables. We have a raspberry patch. We grow rhubarb. I grow garlic. I would never was one for a recipe with like 45 ingredients that you'll never use again. And I was almost afraid, like the recipes use the same ingredients over and over, like the cardamom you mentioned. Anytime a recipe calls for cinnamon, I just pretty much always just put cardamom in instead. I love maple, I love blueberry, lemon, tarragon, I do love. So I felt like those flavors just kept coming back and coming back. But then again, I thought if someone's never cooked with cardamom and they buy a jar, they might actually appreciate 4 or 5 or 6 recipes that they can use it in instead of just one. So it wasn't really a thought or a COVID thought, or, it's hard to get ingredients. It was more just how I actually do cook.
Yeah, no, I think that's really wonderful that you have that. It's a reflection of you and a reflection of your actual heart and what you do on a daily basis. But also, just to sort of reiterate to people, this book is not going to be scary. It's not going to be, they're not going to come across things that they're like, oh, turn the page right now. I don't even want to bother sourcing all those things. Also, I share a love for cardamom, and I have been kind of flipping through the book in the last couple of days. And one of my favorite things to do is put whatever herb like I'm in love with at the moment in a little bit of water, and then just keep it on the oven just to like steep, so I can have that smell sort of pervasively throughout the house. So I had to cut a bunch of rosemary because it's becoming spring here on the West Coast finally. So I had a whole bunch of rosemary cut. I'm kind of gleaning mine so my freshies will come up. And so I did a bunch of rosemary and cardamom in the water, and it's been like perfuming the house all day. So both to
Nice.
sort of get in touch with the zen of your book, and also, to have that deliciousness throughout the air. So I feel like I'm really channeling you. And now I say it's becoming springtime on the West Coast. I've noticed a lot of, in addition to chickens, you also have geese. And I've noticed a lot of crazy geese snow pictures. Is springtime around the bend, or do I get to keep watching the geese play in the snow for another couple of weeks?
So we had snow last year till May. So there'll be plenty more geese playing in the snow photos. We basically have green grass from like
absolutely.
May through November-ish.
Wow. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a whole different thing. Okay.
Yeah, whole different thing.
So I wanted to, one of the chapters that I thought that I didn't expect in this book at all, and I guess I should have, considering that we've had a cheers or two in our Manhattan meetings together. But one of the chapters that I was very excited about, and oh, by the way, it is, you know, they say it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Well, it's 5:15 even on the West Coast. So if anybody wants to be super ambitious and join us with a cocktail, there are some super interesting cocktail recipes in the book. And I think one of the most interesting ones, I'm going to try to hold up the page here, is this sunny side up sidecar. Getting that into the camera there. The sunny side up sidecar. So I just thought it was absolutely beautiful. And honestly, on this note, you had mentioned that Tina Rupp was the photographer for the book. I think she did such an amazing job with the pictures. That was the first cocktail. I saw it when I first opened the book in the morning a few days ago. And I thought to myself, well, I've got a whole work day ahead of me and then I have to go on a long run. Can I make this cocktail right now? So I didn't do it, but can you tell me, I mean, just maybe starting with that cocktail and then sort of branch out into talking about some of the others, where the inspiration for a lot of these really interesting and beautiful drinks came from?
That one, it actually could have been a breakfast cocktail. It has orange juice in it. So I'm thinking it's breakfast. I was actually on a plane a couple years ago, and in like that Sky, whatever that magazine is called, there was a cocktail that looked like an egg. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. I really, really like that. But of course, like I didn't take the magazine or, you know, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So I had to then, you know, go
you
about trying
can.
to.
They tell me you can take those magazines. They say you can.
I could have. I'm sure I could have, but I didn't. So I had to then decide, like, try to figure out how to make it, you know, look like an egg. So that one was kind of fun. But really, my favorite is the maple sour, just because it's a nice little twist on a whiskey sour. I live in Maine. We always have maple syrup. And honestly, maple syrup is a lot easier than making simple syrup. Like, how many times do you want to have a cocktail hour? You have no simple syrups. Now you got to make simple syrup. You got to let it cool. It's like forever, you know.
Well, and then with maple syrup, and I don't know because I haven't necessarily I haven't made one yet. Thank goodness for all of us. But you probably have to use a little bit less, right? Because it's almost more. I mean, I know simple syrup's really sweet, but since maple syrup is so nuanced, you can probably get by with. Like I hate it when a cocktail is too sweet, and I felt like the maple syrup probably just immediately rounds it out.
Yeah, and you could play with it, obviously, you know, and see what you like. But it's just a really easy drink. The sidecar takes a little bit of effort. It's kind of labor intensive, but the maple sour is beautiful.
It's easy to put together. Okay, all right. Yeah, you know, I wish I would have thought about this in advance, and I would have asked you to shake up a little cocktail for us on camera. That would have been fun. But
that would have been cool. And it's funny, you know, because people freak out about egg white foam on the top of a drink. And, you know, if you do order cocktails out, there's a good chance that you have had a cocktail with egg white foam on the top of it and didn't even realize that that's what it was necessarily, because there are a lot of other drinks that use it.
Well, and it's a long cultural tradition. There's been flips and fizzes since like the
beginning of time,
the previous century. And so, yeah, I mean, I remember probably, you know, not necessarily to date us, but I remember there used to be, I don't even know if it's still a chain, but there was Orange Julius when I was a little kid. And literally one of the menu items at the Orange Julius was that you could just drop a raw egg into the Orange Julius. I know it sounds insane, doesn't it? And you can bet those were not fresh, amazing, Lisa Steele spectacular eggs. You know,
that's funny. Yeah, I'll pass on that.
So one thing that you talk about a lot is sort of the freshness of the egg, and I noticed in the intro you kind of you go into that. Can you speak to that a little bit for us? Do you think that the freshness of the egg is really sort of essential? Are there recipes that you would say, okay, these eggs are several weeks old and they've been in the fridge, use them for this, versus these recipes you ought to use your what your girl gave you that day.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're doing something like, well, the alcohol, I guess, in the cocktail would kill any bacteria. But if you're making like
Sure, yes,
mayonnaise
put
or
in
a
the food.
tiramisu or something where the egg isn't fully cooked, or if you really like, a really, really, really runny yolk, I would say go for a fresher egg because there's just less chance of bacteria and salmonella. And that also, if you're poaching or frying an egg, the fresher eggs, the whites are going to be so much thicker. So like if you take an old egg and you break it into your frying pan, it's just going to spread everywhere. If you take a really, really fresh egg, the protein bonds haven't had time to break down and it'll just sit right where you put it. So I think poaching, frying, and partially cooked eggs, you probably should use your freshest, and then like everything else, just use whatever.
Right, like if you're whipping it into a batter, if you know you're going to bake it, if you know it's going to be like thoroughly cooked, then it is less important. But if it's something that you really want to showcase the beauty of the egg, then you try to emphasize, use something that's like fresh and good. So that does beg the question. I would say probably the number one sort of egg debate that I often hear about is what is the best way to, what are the best eggs to use for hard-boiled eggs? And then what is the best way to hard boil an egg? Can you weigh in on this for us?
Yeah, I've been blogging for 12 years. I have like 600 blog posts, and in my top like one or two is how to peel a fresh egg, which is really funny. So most people just take the lazy way out, and they're just like, well, just let your eggs get old and then you can boil them and they'll peel wonderfully because air has had time to get into the egg, pushes the membrane away from the shell, and the egg peels. But then when you hard boil your eggs, you get like that dip in one end. Not pretty. And who wants to eat old eggs anyway? So a couple of years and years ago, actually, someone told me their grandmother said, steam your eggs in a double boiler, a colander, something over simmering water, 12 minutes, take them out, put them in ice water. And I tell you, Linda, I can take an egg that was just laid, like still warm from the chicken, steam it, and it will peel perfectly. Like it's like magic. I'm sure there's some science behind it, but I have no idea what it is. It's just magic.
But really, it's the steaming that's your
it's the steaming. It's the steaming in the ice water bath. Like something must expand or contract or whatever,
Right. Yeah.
Also,
and then it probably pulls it inward.
Yeah. And so you can get the shell off. Also, a lot of times when you boil, like the eggs will crack because they're all banging around in the pan. So if you put them in a steamer basket, they're just laying,
there's no danger in that.
Calmly in the basket and they don't crack.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting. I had heard of that. And then now, of course, all the rage is, I don't even like to say the name of it. I shouldn't be so prejudiced against it. And I know what I'm going to say. I'll say it out loud, but I don't believe in them. How do you feel? Where do you weigh in on the Instapot?
Honestly, the only kitchen appliances I have are a KitchenAid mixer, an immersion blender. We have a toaster. Like, who doesn't have a toaster? And I have a manual pasta machine. Like, I'm not one for buying like bread machines and this and that and filling up my counter with all the, I've never had a crock pot. I've never had a pressure cooker. I use a Dutch oven, if I want to make like a stew or a roast or something that needs to cook for a long time. So
it just seems to me like why buy an extra thing for it when you can just put it in a pot? I same thing with like bread machines and stuff. And I mean, on the other hand, I do think that there is the right tool for the right job, but that's probably something great to emphasize about the book. I'm not going to say everything because I haven't skimmed every single recipe, but by and large, people are going to be able to make most of the recipes in this book with things that they presumably already have at home, right?
Yeah, like a whisk and I do give different methods even, like, for mayonnaise, you can use a blender or you can just use an immersion blender. I mean, you could whisk it if you really wanted to, but yeah, if you have a whisk and, a couple of wooden spoons and a pot, pretty much.
You're there. Yeah. So in the beginning of the book, you do kind of you sort of start with the basics and you talk about all of the, you kind of go over, I think, those sort of initial target questions and also potential misconceptions. And you really kind of get into the, in a very approachable and readable way, into kind of the, why you have chosen over the years to employ the techniques that you employ. So I feel like, in a way, you know, like it's nice to have sort of the graphic of being able to see kind of the difference there. But you give people a lot of tools, and then you take them into the more, I wouldn't even say advanced, but more few ingredients put together recipes. And I think that if they actually go through, well, I mean, and this was a thing with my book, like, I would often get questions that people would ask because they'd be following a specific recipe, and you can't necessarily ask somebody to read your whole book, but this book is very compelling from the beginning throughout, and it is worth reading, taking a little bit of time to read both the headers to the recipes and also kind of the intro. It's interesting. It's a great read. It's a fun read, but it also kind of gives you the tools that you need to set you up for the later recipes. So I think you've done a really nice job with that part in particular. And let's see, there were a few recipes that I earmarked that I think sound absolutely amazing. And, you know, it being 5 o'clock, probably no one's eaten dinner yet. And it's like looking at these pictures and hearing these recipes, but there's one with the puff pastry and the eggs there. Oh, it's like stunning, and it looks so delicious. And I am a big fan of a loose egg. I'm wondering if, like, in a lot of the pictures of the recipes they do feature that really nice, like, jammy creaminess. Do you give people tips for how to cook things like more if they wanted to, or how to keep them? I mean, do you talk about time?
I do in the beginning, like you said, you know, the introduction is pretty intense, and it's, you know, how to scramble eggs, how to fry eggs, how to that. But I also do put the condition that, like, if you don't like a runny yolk in your fried egg, then cook it longer or flip it over, or, like, there's no right or wrong way, but these are just some tips, you know, like when you're scrambling eggs, if you want big curds or small curds or whatever. Yeah, somebody commented actually when I had posted something about the book on social media, the cover, and she said, I can't stand, you know, runny egg yolks. And I was like, well, then cook your egg a little bit more. Like, nothing says, there's no law. Like, if you want to make eggs Benedict and you want the yolk to be literally fully cooked, it's your eggs Benedict. Yeah. You can do that.
Right. Then do it the way you want to do it. Yeah, no, I think that's great to kind of empower people and to teach them how, you know, because I think sometimes people don't know. And then there is definitely too far in terms of, you can turn an egg to rubber very quickly as well.
Well, so. Yeah, it's like eating a steak well done. I mean, I'm not saying I recommend it at all until you've had a jammy, fresh egg. Like, you really shouldn't judge, because there really is nothing better.
Right. Oh my God. I know. How can you not love it? I have a couple of more questions for you. I do want to just reiterate for anybody who is just joining us. We have a Q&A there at the bottom of the video. So if you have any questions, I know we've got some questions queued up already, and I will get to those very shortly. But if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in the Q&A. Also, for anyone joining late, this will be recorded. And Laura from Book Larder, I think, will put out a link to everyone, and also it will be on YouTube, so you'll have access to anything that you missed in the chat. And just to kind of reiterate what we're talking about for anybody who hasn't seen yet, this is the beautiful cover of Lisa Steele's latest book, her first cookbook. And yeah, that's what we're talking about. So we're now kind of just going through some of the recipes we've talked. I had to start with cocktails, and then we sort of talked technique, and then some of the more savory recipes. One of the things, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but I'm going to hold it up to the screen so that they can see it and you can see it. Can you talk about that beautiful, gorgeous thing that I need in my tummy right now?
Yeah, so that is a panukaku, and I apologize for any like true Finnish people out there. I'm like 2 generations removed from Finland, but growing up, my mom and my grandmother cooked a lot of traditional Finnish food, and it's basically a German Dutch baby. But of course, being Scandinavian, it has cardamom in it, so it's
awesome.
It's good, and it's nice because cardamom, for those who aren't familiar with it, anytime I use it in a recipe, invariably somebody will say, like, what's that I'm tasting? What's that flavor? And people aren't really
Mm.
familiar with it, but it can be kind of sweet or savory. You could turn that into like more like a dinner pancake with some sausages and whatever, or you can put berries and whipped cream on it or whatever. But yeah, I like cardamom because it's kind of like cinnamon, but kind of not.
I love it. I definitely tend to I live in the more savory side of the world usually. And so I'm always savory with my cardamom. I love like a cardamom browned butter on pasta, I think is awesome. And one thing I think is really interesting about it is that there's black and green cardamom, and they both have kind of different flavor profiles. So I love that we have a kinship over that ingredient. The fact that you call this a Finnish Dutch baby, do you want to know something crazy about Dutch babies? Guess where Dutch babies came from? Seattle. So
Really?
our conversation is being moderated through the book larder, and I am based in Seattle, and probably a lot of our participants today are here, or at least some other fellow Seattleites. I just learned a few weeks ago that the Dutch baby was invented in a restaurant in Seattle, somewhere in maybe like the 1920s. There was a cafe from the 1900s to like the 1940s that made the original Dutch baby. So I know, I was so surprised. So I guess he probably was a Dutch, I shouldn't say he, they, whoever it was, were probably Dutch immigrants, but I thought that was so interesting. So so we're just we have a few questions, and we're going to jump into that very shortly. I did want to talk about one of my, I can't even say favorite ways to have an egg, because there's really not a bad egg in my book. But one preparation that I absolutely love with eggs is deviled eggs. And so I just want to show a couple of pictures of your deviled eggs here. So these are kind of classic deviled eggs there. And then I want you to talk to me about kind of how you sort of came up with your sort of iterations on your deviled eggs, and kind of what makes them unique, and why are these recipes beloved to you? And also, I love turmeric too, so I love that as your
also, I love turmeric. The first one is with avocado oil and sage, and like we were talking about herbs earlier, I just love sage. I think that it just goes really well with eggs, and it's kind of a different flavor that people might not be used to. So that one's fun, but I really love the turmeric one. I was making pickled eggs for the book, and beet pickled eggs, so they come out red, are probably the most common way to do them. And I'm just not a fan of that. It's not really appetizing to me. So I was kind of looking around and thinking, well, what could I do that's different? And I said, well, if I did them in the turmeric, they would come out yellow and just be kind of pretty and eggy. And then I thought, and then what if I turned it into a deviled egg? Like, how cool is that? So that outside of the white is actually yellow. And it came out very cool.
Yeah, actually, let me hold the picture up again so that people can kind of see. But it is sort of neat. It's like a lemon-esque look to it, where you could say that you have like that outside that's yellow, and then the pith part of it that's white, and then it goes back into the yellow more. But yeah, let's show that picture. I mean, for like going to a party or something, a platter of those would be absolutely just stunning. Are there, and we're about to jump into people's questions, but are there any, I wanted to talk about the eggs in a nest too. Or no, we talked about those.
No, we didn't. Those were the puffy eggs.
Are there any, yes, the puffy eggs we talked about. Okay. Sorry. Two more favorite recipes here, and then we'll jump into your questions. So you guys, please feel free to jump into that Q&A and give us your questions. I thought this was just ingenious, the butternut squash rounds, because it makes like the perfect container. In fact, you did such great exploration into what is the perfect sort of container or holder for the eggs. There's a lot of like awesome little, egg pocket holder kind of thing. This was really one of my favorites though, and it looks delicious.
I love that. Yeah, I see the pepper rings, you do like an egg and a pepper ring, and I'm not a huge fan of peppers, but I love butternut squash, and that is one of my favorite recipes.
That's one of your favorite in the book. I mean, it looks absolutely beautiful, and it's very, yes. And then the other one that I wanted to show was the eggs in a nest. Of course, I took my my picture away. I just think that the eggs in the nest also looks absolutely delicious. Well, you know what? Why don't we jump straight into questions? So I'm actually looking down at our Q&A and our chat, and we're getting a lot of questions coming through the chat, and I will get to those. I'm going to start with the questions in the Q&A though, and any questions moving forward, if you guys could try to put them in the Q&A. I think Laura was kind of explaining how that just organizes it better for the recording afterward, I think she was mentioning. So let's take a few questions from people. So David Brown has asked us, how long can you keep unwashed eggs unrefrigerated? And Lisa, I know you get this question a lot, so I'm excited to hear you answer.
Unwashed eggs, we're not talking store-bought, because store-bought eggs have to be washed. The United States is like one of the few countries in the world that requires eggs to be washed. But unwashed, like from your chickens or your neighbor's chickens or a farmer's market, out on the counter, you're good for probably a good 2 or 3 weeks. And then I probably, would check them, and I wouldn't crack one like right into my bowl or batter or whatever, but probably longer than that, but easy 2 or 3 weeks, they're going to be just fine.
And then by check them, you mean just go ahead and do the float test before you
do the float test. Yeah, where if it's fresh, it's going to sit on the bottom. Yeah. So when an egg is fresh, it sits on the bottom. If you put it in a glass of water, as the egg gets old, air gets in through the pores in the eggshell, making the egg more buoyant, and it's going to start to float. A floating egg is not necessarily bad, but enough air has gotten in. I would have to assume that bacteria has gotten in with it, and I just wouldn't take a chance on it.
Good. Yeah. And I think great tip. And I know you've probably answered a million times, but about if there's ever any doubt, absolutely don't crack it directly into whatever you need to use it for. And then similarly, if there's ever any doubt about whether or not an egg is good or bad, I mean, you're going to know when an egg is bad. There's like no question.
Yeah, there is no question. No question. I mean, I have had eggs. So if you have an unwashed egg and you refrigerate it, it's going to last even longer. So now you're talking probably 4, 5, 6 months. I have some in the fridge from probably September or October, and they've been fine. I've been using them and taking them out, not thinking anything. I took one out the other day, and just at the last minute, I was like, let me just crack this into a little bowl. And I cracked it in the bowl, and it was like a science experiment. I mean, it was like blue and pink, and I mean, it was growing
so
all
many things
crazy
inside there. Yeah. Oh, and the smell, it's just that once that, like, I go right off of cooking when I smell that smell. Like, never mind, we're getting takeout in 2 days from now when I can eat again.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go back to, let's see. So Billy Fisher wants to know, is it as easy as I've heard it is to poach eggs for future use, which will still have a semi-runny yolk? If so, how long would these last? That's a tricky one.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I've actually never done that. I mean, if I'm going to poach for eggs Benedict or whatever, I poach them and we use them. I mean, I guess if you took them out of the water and put them in the fridge, they probably would last just kind of like a hard-boiled egg would, maybe up to a week, 5 days, something like that. I guess. I don't know.
I think it
I've
sort
never
of
tried
diminishes the quality. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it diminishes the quality to try to save it. And it's like people often, like, I make pasta all the time and teach pasta all the time, and people ask, oh, well, can I freeze this? Can I freeze this? Can I freeze this? And some shapes work really well to freeze. But I always say with the fast, easy things, just to make like at the moment like that, there's no point making it ahead of time and freezing it, because you are diminishing the quality of it. And then why would you do that when you could just make it at the minute and it's really not that much longer? And I understand maybe with poached eggs that, maybe for portability. I know you don't like gadgets, but I would say if somebody really wants a soft, oozy egg, then throw it in the immersion circulator, then at least you have the shell around it. Cook it sous vide, then at least you have the shell around it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, the shell is like the number one protection against air, bacteria, all the other nasties. And then the membrane is like that second barrier. So if you're removing both of those, I don't know, you're just leaving it open to, I don't know,
just a lot of potential for not only just like breakdown of the texture and overcooking of the yolk, but also what's going on in your air and stuff. So, okay. So Lisa Schaller wants to know where she can find both vanilla paste and cardamom.
I mean, well, now because of COVID, I buy, well, before COVID, who am I kidding? I buy everything online. But I believe Williams and Sonoma, a place like that, would have the vanilla bean paste, most definitely. I don't know that the regular grocery store would, but any kind of like kitchen shop or specialty shop or something like that. Cardamom, my mom sends it to me a lot. So I don't know that I've looked at the grocery store, but I would think the regular grocery store would have cardamom, right, Linda?
Yeah, the regular grocery store has cardamom. If by chance that person is local to Seattle, for sure Whole Foods and PCC will have it. Personally, I love to support Penzeys spices. That's like just freshest spices, and they are just the most conscientious, ethical, lovely, and wonderful company to support in terms of getting some of the more esoteric spices. That's Penzeys, Penzeys, and then they'll have a whole bunch of different kinds of cardamom to choose from. But then, yeah, again, if you're local, vanilla paste for sure is at Met Market, Whole Foods, and PCC.
Okay.
And then some of the better, more well-stocked. I'm not sure who's from all over and how many, since Book Larder is our center, how many people are Seattle. But yeah, I love to mail order through Penzeys. They're like super great people to support from a spice perspective. Also in Seattle, if you are here, we have Market Spice, and they go deep into cardamom and have a whole bunch of different crazy cool cardamoms to play around with. So,
Neat.
and my gosh, the price of vanilla sure has been interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, because I use so much, I buy like a thing of, vanilla bean paste this big. It was like $100 and something. It was crazy, but I mean, you're only using like a teaspoon at a time. So,
Right.
but I mean, once I
You're
started, I
actually
do
saving money by buying it that big.
you
but
are by
still,
buying
it's
so
like,
much.
it's quite
Yeah,
a blow at first. Yeah.
it is a blow. But in the book, I only use vanilla bean paste. I can't think the last time I used extract. For those who don't know, it's almost kind of like a molassesy type consistency, but it gives you those flecks. So you're not using vanilla beans, which dry out on me all the time, and they're even more expensive. But the paste, you use it 1-to-1 ratio with the extract. But if you're making like ice cream or a cheesecake or something like that, it gives you those nice vanilla flecks in it. And you don't get that weird alcohol taste that you get sometimes with the vanilla extract.
Yeah, I think it's easier to work with than beans. And so it's like the intermediary between going straight to beans or doing that. When I was a little kid, I drank an entire bottle of vanilla extract. And so I don't know why I thought it was root beer. Well, it smells good.
Right.
I mean, I was 4, but it smells so good, and so
it couldn't have tasted very good though.
It's absolutely awful. I couldn't. Like, I can do paste and I can do vanilla beans, but like vanilla extract, I get near it. I'm like, oh God, it just takes you right to that moment of like, where's the, yeah. So, okay, let's see. Okay. Johanna Rios asks, if you wash eggs, can you leave them in a cold room, like a basement, for a week?
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's, approaching refrigerator temperatures, like I'd say high 40s or, low 50s. But I mean, you really don't want to wash them. You really, really should just leave them until you're ready to cook with them, because the bloom on the outside of the shell, it's like the last thing that's applied before the chicken lays the egg. That protects everything. That covers the pores. It keeps the air out. It keeps the moisture inside the egg. So as soon as you remove that, it's almost like the countdown clock has started to the egg disintegrating in quality and taste and texture and everything.
Right. Yeah. I think that's really, really, really great advice. And then I'm just just for anybody new joining this, reiterate, I'm going to get over to the chat and look at the questions over there. But if you could please put your questions into the Q&A, so we have them in the queue, then that just helps us format-wise. So you can see at the bottom of your screen, there's the Q&A and the chat. Questions in the Q&A would be great. And then also, we would love to welcome, if anybody, I know probably a lot of people haven't gotten the book because it just came out today, but if you have any kind of recipe specific or cooking questions or cookbook related questions, go ahead and throw those into our Q&A. So a little bit more in the Q&A, and then I'm going to go over to chat. But if you could please put your chat questions into the Q&A, that would be great. Let's see, we have Billy Fisher just pointing out that here in Seattle, World Spice locally is one of the best local sources in Seattle, and it's below Pike Place Market, and it's been around for many years, and that's totally true. Yep. Okay, let's come over to our chat here and see what we have. Okay, we've got a great question from Leslie. She would like to know, what is your favorite way to do fried eggs?
Fried eggs are interesting. My husband likes them sunny side up, and I like them a little bit more over easy, but I cook them in the same pan, and then I'll just put like a little extra butter in the pan and then tip the pan and baste my yolk. Almost like, when you cook a steak or something and you butter baste a steak, you can do the same thing with the egg and just keep spooning the hot butter over the yolk of the egg. Really nice. Cooks it nicely. It's nice and buttery, easy.
And then let's see, can I back that up with some reference here in the book? I think let's see, there we go. Oh my gosh, the fried egg. Oh, there's a few. Okay. Oh, there's so many. Here, let me just flip through this, you guys. Well, I mean, this is you can't imagine how hard this is, doing this right before dinner. But look at that. So that's kind of where we're starting here with our fried egg recipe. And that one is with apricot jam and goat cheese. Sounds horribly delicious.
See, now I think that sounds horrible, but that was my mother's contribution,
so
and
good.
I promised I would put it in, and I tried it, and it's a weird combination, but it works.
Oh, it sounds so spectacular. And I actually really like apricot with egg, because I like the fact that the amber, if you're using, your eggs, then the color should
it matches.
So I think that's really cool. Yes. And then we have our crispy lemon fried eggs, and that sort of lacy round, and that egg in particular, that really touches on what you were talking about earlier about when fresh eggs are important. Like that fried egg really just stays kind of perfectly in its circle instead of spreading out the way you were mentioning. The older the egg, the sort of looser that protein is in the albumin, and then it kind of, you're never going to get that perfect. I mean, that's like an emoji right there. That's an emoji fried egg. Like it's perfect fried egg. So, and then, this one's with asparagus and hollandaise. So kind of veering into our eggs Benedict territory there. And then actually this next one is not a fried egg, but I grew up with this recipe, and we called it egg in a hole growing up, and I noticed that you call it egg in a nest. Did you debate what to call it in the book, or is that what you grew up with, egg in a nest?
So my mom actually was too lazy to cut a hole in the bread and would just drop the egg on top of the piece of toast. So I didn't actually grow up with the cute cutout. But in writing the book and researching it, and I asked people on social media, like, what do you call this and all this other stuff? And egg in the nest just seemed like it was the more traditional name, although people call
the
it
common one. Yeah.
One-eyed Jack and all different parts of the country.
Yes.
They were just throwing all, and I should have listed all the different names that people call it. But yeah, we just had plain old dropped eggs on toast because apparently my mom was just too lazy to go find the cookie cutter in the morning.
Or even the orange juice glass would have worked. You just make one. By the way, you've thrown your mom under the bus twice. I hope she's not listening to that.
I have. I'm going to have to ask her that next time I talk to her and be like, why the heck couldn't you just use a juice glass? Would it have been that hard?
I know, why didn't you just cut it out? Yeah. Actually, no, it's funny. I can tell how much you love your mother, and I absolutely love my mother as well. She was my proofreader on my cookbook. She's read it probably 4 times before I put it out. And then the other day she was helping me in my studio, and I make 50 pounds of pasta a week, and she's been there for this process for years and years and years, and she knows this. And we're making all the pasta balls, and I say, oh, Mom, I need you to put them in rainbow order so that I, mentally I can like see where they go and how they line up or whatever. And she says to me, Linda, I don't have the rainbow memorized. First of all, Mom, everything I stand, like this has been my life work for however long, Second of all, everybody has the rainbow memorized.
Right? It like goes in order,
but
like
it's
you learn
all
that in
in,
kindergarten.
yeah.
Oh, and can I
Yes,
just break in
exactly.
to say, one of the funniest things I have ever seen in my life was a video you did blindfolded, trying to put the colored pasta in the right order of the rainbow just by feel. I was
Feel,
super
yes.
impressed. It was really funny.
Because like the vegetable ingredients do have, they impact the texture a little bit, so I was hoping that I could create the rainbow. I think I messed one up. I think just one though. Like I got
Like the purple or something like that. But yeah,
like the
I
purple and the
was,
red were so close.
mhm.
But yeah, it was, I need to do that again. In fact, not even on video. I want to do that one live. I feel like that would be fun. And we had talked about when you kind of were conceiving of this book, it was there in the beginning of COVID, and I remember talking to you, and I think we were kind of both thinking that that we might be existing in a slightly different reality at this point. But gosh, we are going to have to make it happen where we get to cook together from the book, and make something wild and crazy utilizing both of our skill sets. So
That would be
I
super
want to
fun.
turn to page 66 really quickly here.
In your hymnals,
So
page 66.
the cream fried eggs, Lara's pointing out that the cream fried eggs on page 66. So can you tell us a little bit about that recipe?
Yes, and I did forget about that one
I've heard
before.
about it.
There is no picture. I'm so bummed out. The photography is so beautiful. And as you know, when you write a cookbook,
Oh, yeah.
the photography is a huge budget line item. And it's just expensive to have a photo for every picture.
Right.
But I was like so sad for the ones that didn't get pictures, because I think they're all beautiful. But except maybe the mushroom pie, not really beautiful. But yeah, so I have eggs. Like I have eggs almost every morning, and I just throw butter in the pan and whatever. I had no butter, but I had a teeny bit of cream, heavy cream in the bottom,
Yeah.
and I usually add it to my coffee, if I just have a teeny bit. So I said, well, maybe I'll just put that in the pan, heat it up, put the egg in, see what happens. Well, what happens is the milk solids separate and start to caramelize.
Okay.
You end up with like the fluffiest, smoothest fried egg like ever. I mean, it's delicious. Like you want to lick.
So it
the
really does
pan.
fry it. You're not like poaching it in milk. It really does take
Yeah,
on
because
the
you're
quality.
only
As those
putting
milk fats
enough.
separate, the cream turns into, you get the fat side of it, not the.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you're just covering the bottom of the pan, just enough that the bottom's covered. But I mean, now I just like I could go through a whole container of heavy cream just using a little each morning in my eggs. It's really good.
Wow. So worth it then. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds amazing. Let's see. Let me go back over to our, so Sue Cowan just wanted to note for everyone that she likes to buy whole cardamom pods, and then she grinds them for extra flavor and fragrance. And that's a great tip, Sue. Thank you.
Yeah, in general, I use nutmeg. I always grind my nutmeg, and my mom actually sends me cardamom pods and thinks I use them, but I buy the ground because I'm too lazy. So there, I threw myself under the bus.
You know what I do? I just see, Mom, we took you down twice. Now your daughter's gonna take herself down. No, I think it's the easiest thing in the world. Like I don't even have a pepper grinder because I just like those little things that people who drink coffee use for coffee, the little like coffee grinder thingy. They're like this big. I just have one. I mean, they're $20 and I just have that. So then I put my cardamom in there, my nutmeg in there, my black pepper in there. Everything just goes into that little thing, and then I think it's easy. It's faster and easier than even using the ground, and then it's so yummy and fresh.
And it's definitely
delicious.
fresher. Yeah, you get so much more flavor.
You can totally taste it. Yeah, like the nutmeg. Oh my gosh, I remember running all over Manhattan one time trying to find whole nutmeg pods, and it was like, okay, I'm in like the epicenter of everything culinary and arguably the world, and I can't find whole nutmeg pods. Who are you people?
Heathens.
So let's see. So Tina Kimes, I hope I'm not massacring your last name, Tina. would like to know. Ooh, I love her question. Tina's putting me on the spot here. She wants to know, it's a two-part question. What is your favorite sweet recipe in the book? And what is your favorite savory recipe in the book?
I'm super boring and super traditional. And I'd have to say, I mean, as you can tell, my favorite savory is Eggs Benedict. Like if I were on death row and could have my last meal, it would definitely be Eggs Benedict. Like once you master hollandaise sauce, homemade hollandaise sauce, so good. And sweet, I would have to say creme brulee. It's so pure and so simple, and just it really highlights the like 3 or 4 ingredients. In fact, I'm so traditional that when I'll order creme brulee out a lot because I do like to try other people's and I just love it. And I get annoyed if it comes and there's like a cookie stuck in it or there's like berries on it and whipped cream on it. Like I just want my creme brulee. It's all about just cracking
You want
the
it
top.
classic, yeah.
I don't
Yep.
need fancy
There's not a
stuff on the
picture of it.
top.
I'll hold up just the
There's
recipe there
not.
so
That
you
one
can
I
see
was
that it's in the book. But yeah, I mean, I can see why they didn't include, I totally agree with you. I think it's one of those classics. It's like chocolate mousse or something, you know, where it's such a classic, perfect recipe, but I can see where the photographer was like, okay, just this, how am I going to get a, you know, picture of it like being this
and
big?
you got to pick and choose.
I get that.
I mean,
but,
you can't have a picture of everything, unfortunately.
right.
So
Right. No, it's
Mhm.
hard. Great answers, both of those. And you do actually in the creme brulee, you talk about the torch being one of your gadgets that you will.
that is
but
one of the
that's a
gadgets I
multi-use
have. Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. I do have a torch. And honestly, if that's the only thing you ever use it for, it's worth buying. They're not expensive.
Even
And
yeah.
you can't get the same result broiling. I've tried and it's just not the same. Like you got to have the hand torch and you got to stand there and you got to do it. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, Laura is back, and I think she is probably going to take us round to home plate.
Oh, you
here.
can finish up here, Linda, if you had a way to finish up. And I'm sorry, it got very dark where I was sitting. So like I've come back in this like mood lighting kind of situation here.
We have.
Should I shut my light off?
We did just have one more. We need your light. Come back. Oh, you know what? You hit it. Tina, you and I must have the same brainwave there because I think we asked the question at the same time. But yeah, so Tina had asked us if there was any special equipment for the sugar on the creme brulee, but you covered that. So we are good there. Well, I learned a lot, you know, already knowing you and what an amazing, spectacular human you are and how thorough and well-researched and really knowledgeable about your field you are. I'm so excited actually to get a chance to dive into this. So thank you for sharing your expertise in the new culinary realm with all of us, my dear, and congratulations on this.
Thanks, Linda.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Linda, for leading such an entertaining and just informative discussion. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lisa, for joining us, and congratulations, as Linda said, on your fantastic book. I love eggs, and I've said on here a bunch of times, I'm sorry if people have watched several of these, that I'm like 5 months into a kitchen remodel, so I'm like dying, and I cannot wait to start cooking from this. But I might have to get out the hot plate just to make a couple of these, especially those cream fried eggs. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. As we mentioned, this has been recorded, so it'll be on our YouTube channel in the next couple of days. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy and cooking lots of eggs. Thank you for being here. Bye, everyone.
Bye.